How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball. Welcome back to the last review, the Prem of the season, where me and Sim go head-to-head in predicting Premier League outcomes. As you can see, the score going into the final day was 437 to Sim, 427 to myself. 10 points is the gap. Let's go and see who came out on top by the end of it and who claims predict the Prem champion for the year. Going into it is, for the series, it was 1-1, wasn't it? You won the first one 2 years ago. I won last year on the final day. Let's see who comes out on top this time. And let's go through the game, starting off with Arsenal against Everton. It finished 2-1 to Arsenal. Sim went for 3-0. I went to 5-0. Look, I think by the end of it, in terms of the chances created by both teams, you could say Arsenal did run out deserved winners, but Arsenal came under a lot of pressure during the game. They were giving up chances, and I felt Everton were giving it as good as they were getting at a certain point of the game. But I guess when you're looking at the result of this game, it does stem on that goal that they did score. Was it a handball? Was it not a handball?
I thought it was a handball for sure. I thought, I don't understand why the VAR... I mean, VAR obviously gets involved. Referee went to the screen and decided to stay with his own decision. Now, I don't mind that in principle because I do think we have to be seeing more of that. Yeah. I think too often referees go to the screen and whatever is shown to them, they just go along with the VAR even when the VAR is wrong. So I do kind of appreciate a referee going into the screen and looking at it and actually...
If they get it right.
But on this occasion, for me, Jesus definitely handballs it deliberately. I mean, he's stepping across the Everton defender and he leans into it with his arm, very clearly makes an action with his arm and it clearly hits his arm and he gains an advantage from using his arm as well. I think for me, very purposefully, very deliberate, and I don't think that goal should be allowed to stand. So I do think they got very, very lucky in that situation. Obviously, they did deserve the win. I think Everton probably had a bit more of the game than people would have thought going into it. Obviously, they did go 1-0 up through that deflected free kick from Idrissa Gueye. But Arsenal did equalise very quickly and obviously dominated possession and ran out deserved winners, but it wasn't enough for them at the end of the day to get where they wanted to be, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, and we're all so upset about that. But you got to say, in the first half, Everton were giving as good as they were getting. But in the second half, Everton created little next to nothing, didn't they?
Yeah. Look, Arsenal were always probably going to win this game. It's no surprise. Everton will probably feel proud that they took it to the last minute, and they'll probably feel a bit frustrated that the goal that did stand probably shouldn't have stood. So they'll probably be arguing, they could have got a draw if that goal didn't stand, but is what it is.
Yeah, a couple of really funny things happening on the day. The fake score going round when the whole Emirates thought it was 2-2 after the 2-1, and the stadium erupts, doesn't it? They think Man City are drawing 2-2, and I was just like, oh, how embarrassing.
Love it, absolutely. Whoever started that rumour, touche. I mean, absolutely first class from them.
And after the game, Havertz breaking into tears. He looks so dejected in his post-match interview as well. And I'm like, where has this? Why is he so dejected? Like, are they really thinking Man City are going to slip up on the last day? It's like, oh my God, Man City beat West Ham at home. Like, how could it be?
They should have seen it coming, I think. If they thought West Ham were going to do them any favours, it was always going to be unlikely. So maybe they really believed. I think Arteta really believed, but wasn't to be.
Yeah. Next up, Brentford against Newcastle. It finished 4-2 to Newcastle on the day. I went for 2-1 to Newcastle. Sim went for 2-1 to Brentford, so I gained a point for this one. Really up and down game, wasn't it? I think Newcastle took the lead, doubled the lead, tripled their lead, and then Brentford started coming back into it, 3-1. 3-2, and then Bruno Guimaraes puts it to bed with 10 minutes to go. And what an end of the season he's having, by the way. Goal contribution after goal contribution. He's really started to add that to his game. But a really good win for Newcastle last day of the season. That doesn't really mean anything for them.
Yeah, it means they get 7th, which means, I'm guessing that means if Man City win the cup, they get Conference League, I think, doesn't it?
Is that what it means? Yeah.
Yeah, because if Man City win the cup, because it will drop down, because then Chelsea will get Europa. Yes, that makes sense. So I guess Conference League at the end of their season, where, let's be honest, for a lot of their season they've been mid-table and struggling with a lot of injuries. So I guess they'll take a European place and think it's good, not progress, but just solid that another season in Europe. Considering, got to remember, before last season, even though they got Champions League this season, when was the last time they were in Europe? Probably 20 years ago. So the fact they got back-to-back European campaigns now.
I think it was longer than 20 years.
No, actually, they got Europe about 10 years ago. And then before that, there was like once.
Wasn't the last time before last season under Bobby Robson, or was it
That was
after
Champions
that?
League.
Oh, that was
Europe.
Champions League.
Yeah, they got Europe before that. I remember the season they had Papi Cisse, Demba Ba that season. They had Europe.
Who was their manager at the time?
Alan Pardew.
Pardew.
They got Europa League that season, but basically it was their first time in like a decade they got Europe. So to get in consecutive seasons is definitely an improvement as a whole club. Obviously, dropping down from Champions League to Conference League is not great. In terms of the game, yeah, Brentford actually scored in the first couple of minutes, but got ruled out from VAR. The Newcastle just absolutely steamed ahead. And Isaac, again, you have to see his goal. I mean, he got the third goal, but so clinical. Literally one touch out of his feet and bam, right in the corner. And he's so clinical in those scenarios. And that's really something he's developed over his last year at Newcastle, just that really clinical edge, because he was always a striker who is really great in all the facets of the game, dribbling, build up. But now he's like this super clinical striker as well. And for me, one of the best strikers in the Premier League at the moment. And obviously they got back in the game, Brentford, but they couldn't quite get it back to 3-3, just try as they might. And a good win for Newcastle. And to be fair to them, really good end to the season for them. I think they've really forced their way into Europe for the end of the season form, and they'll be looking to push on next season. But it'll be interesting to see where they go, Newcastle, what kind of summer they have, and what their expectations next season, because obviously getting top 4 was great. Then now Conference League, a bit of a drop off, but look, with all the injuries, I think people are willing to take top 7. But next season, do they have to get back in the top 4, or otherwise Eddie Howe's under pressure?
I wouldn't say top 4. I think they need to have an improvement on this year. I think Europa League would be acceptable for their fans at this moment in time. I think halfway through the season, there was a lot of doubters outside of Newcastle about Eddie Howe and the job he's doing. I think now, second half of the season, I think he's dispelled all that, pushed all those aside. I think he's a really good manager. He's onto a really good thing at Newcastle. It depends on FFP and all this kind of stuff, what kind of targets they can bring in. There's rumoured that they need to get rid of a big player this summer, so that might hamper them. So I think Champions League last year was a clear overperformance of where they're at. So I think if you improve on Conference League next season, get into the Europa League, I think that'll be a good season for them.
Yeah, I feel like the board are going to want to get Champions League again next season. That'll be the aim. And it'll be interesting to see, because like once you finish top 4, right, you can't then 2 seasons later only get 6th and say you're improving. You know what I mean? So there will be questions, I reckon, if they're not seriously involved in a top 4 race next season, I think.
I don't know. It depends how the season pans out. It depends what kind of signings they can bring through the door. It depends how other teams also do, because you're going to have such a competitive league, probably more competitive than this year, definitely more competitive than the previous year as well. So it's going to be so hard for them to get in the top 4. And I do feel like if they finish 5th and get Europa League next season, I do think they'll look at it as a good season. But on Alexander Isak, by the way, 21 goals this season, the first player to hit over 20 goals in the Premier League since Alan Shearer for Newcastle, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, and what a player. And the longer they keep him fit, better it's going to be for them.
Yeah. Let's move on to Brighton against Manchester United. Finished 2-0 at the Amex to Manchester United. We both went for Brighton wins, 1-0 for Sim, 2-1 for me. And I thought Brighton were by far the better team in that first half. They just couldn't put away any of their chances. Same old story for Brighton. In the second half, it was a bit more kind of even, the game, where there was chances at both ends. But it was the classic tale of just taking your chances.
I think Man United ended the season as they started it with a really lucky win, in my opinion. I think Brighton had numerous clear opportunities to take the lead. They just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. I think Man United had about 3 goal line clearances before taking the lead. And also with the goal they scored, big bit of luck I felt with the goal as well. Onana just plays a long ball forward and Igor just completely misjudges the situation, tries to head it back to the keeper, doesn't see Dalot there, and Dallow's made a run on his blind side and obviously picks up the loose ball, ends up putting United 1-0 up. And I think Brighton have suffered in this game with what they've suffered all season, just finishing their chances. They've always never had a problem creating opportunities, but putting the ball in the back of the net has been a big problem for them this whole season. And it happened again this time. Obviously, Højlund wrapping up late on with a really nice goal. And a decent win for Man United. I think they did again get lucky. Again, it wasn't a performance or a result which made me think they're going to go into that cup final against City and going to get a result in that game, but I'm willing to be proved wrong. Obviously, De Zerbi's last game in charge of Brighton. He leaves at the end of the season, and he's always that kind of character, isn't he? If he doesn't see improvement, he's just going to jump ship, isn't he? He always wants the team to be kicking on. I think with Brighton, maybe he feels like, obviously last season he got them into Europa. This season now, bottom half at the end after a really poor second half of the season. So maybe he feels like he can't really go any further than what he's already done.
I feel like he doesn't agree with the way the clubs run. Very much a selling club. Whenever someone has a breakout season at Brighton, they're always sold the next year for big money, and then the next kind of lump of talent comes in. And he did say a couple of weeks ago that he doesn't know if they have the same ambitions, Brighton and himself. So it was probably right for them to part ways at this point. It could be interesting to see which way they go with it now.
Yeah, first
Graham Potter's available.
I was about to say, Potter, I would not be surprised if they go back for him. Why not? He's not really... he nearly went for Ajax, but it fell through that deal. So if I'm Potter, I mean, it's probably a decent... If they want him back, I mean, it's not a bad move for him, I think. I'd get that old job back. And in terms of De Zerbi, obviously there's rumours about top clubs after him. But I don't know, I would be surprised if a real top club like Bayern or something... Apparently AC Milan are interested in him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like AC Milan go for him, but I would be surprised if Bayern go for him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to end up at Bayern, but... I don't know if you saw at the end of the game there, the fans were serenading him saying, "We want you to stay." He did have a bit of a tear in his eye. Do you reckon there could be a bit of a U-turn there?
No, I don't think so. I think he's made his decision, and I think he's taken them as far as he can go, and I think that's probably right, to be honest.
Yeah. Moving on to Burnley against Forest. We knew Burnley had already down. Forest had stayed up by the before this game. You went for 2-1 to Nottingham Forest, which exactly was the score. 5 points go Simia's way for this one. I went for 1-1. So obviously I miss out. And it was probably like the way you exactly expected this game to go, with Burnley having the majority of the possession and Nottingham Forest picking them off, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I thought. Obviously, they did race into a 2-0 lead. Burnley threatened to get back in it late in the game, but only the goal to show for it, and they end the season with a loss. And again, Burnley this season is pretty similar to what they've suffered, the same problems. Had a lot of possession, a lot of pretty football, but when it came to it, Forest had the quality to hurt them and had that little bit of talent in the forward line. So, unfortunately for Burnley, another loss, and that's how they ended the season. Obviously, Forest, they were obviously pretty much safe before this game, but obviously confirmed it with the 3 points.
Yeah, and there's also question marks about Nuno Espirito Santo. I've seen this morning saying that he could leave before the start of next season.
If I'm Forest, I'd consider it if there's an appointment they have in mind that they think it's better for the long term. Because I think Nuno's kept them up, but I guess if you add the 4 points. I mean, it doesn't change their position. They'll still be 17th. But I haven't seen Forest as really improving their performance level that much. I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Cooper was able to get the level of points that Nuno was able to get. I think he's done all right. He's kept them up. I don't think it's any special achievement or anything like that. So if I'm Forest, I think there's no massive need to change it. But you also get the feeling that Nuno's just a poor run of form away from the chop. So if that is the case, then maybe just get someone through the door who you really believe in long term.
Yeah, I think so as well. Next up, Chelsea against Bournemouth, finished 2-1 to Chelsea. Sim went for 3-1, I went for 4-1, so 1 point on the board each. Probably got to say goal of the season in this game, or definitely one of Moises Caicedo on the halfway line, literally lobs Neto. What a finish that was. And I don't think it was a classic Chelsea performance, but they did what they need to do to get over the line. Bournemouth definitely had their own chances, and they should have scored more than one goal. It was an own goal from Badiashile. So maybe a draw was maybe a fair reflection on this game.
Yeah, I think Bournemouth probably deserve more. But Chelsea end the season with 5 consecutive victories, and unbelievable finish for them, snatching that 6th spot, which for a lot of the season seemed well beyond them. And the fact that they even, were close to 5th and even close to overtaking Spurs going to the final day is a testament to how they've done in the second half of the season under Pochettino. Now, there's still obviously rumours. No one's confirmed whether Poch is going to stay or not. I think at this point, they would be crazy to completely change what they've been building. They've gone through all this rebuild this whole season. So why, right when it's going right, you change it would be crazy, in my opinion.
I don't think they will.
I mean, I think they'd be crazy to, but there seems to be some weird comments coming out from Pochettino. He didn't stay for the lap of honour at Chelsea.
He had media duties, Sim. He had media duties.
It's all very strange. It's all very weird. He was asked before, are you going to stay next season? He's saying, they might want to keep me, but I might want to leave. And he's like, why would you say that? It's a really strange thing to say in the media. So I do think he'll end up staying. I'll be shocked if they end up parting ways, whether it be mutual, whether he gets sacked. But I think at this point, if I'm like, he's shown at the end of the season that the team are starting to get their act together. They're starting to form consistently. They're starting to get wins on the board now, and they've actually built some decent momentum going into next season. They've got something to build on. Obviously, Palmer's absolutely doing brilliant. I think obviously they keep Gallagher. He's had a really strong end to the season. Moises Caicedo's finally finding his feet. Jackson's been scoring consistently. So they've got a nucleus of a very young side. And they can really build and maybe challenge for that top 4 next season. And obviously they'll be in Europa League as well, so that'll be European competition they have. So really good end to the season for Chelsea, but it remains to be seen what will happen next season. Yeah,
and it looks like they have confirmed Europa League football, but on Pochettino, you do kind of feel like even however well it's going, if they hit a bad run again, the knives will be out for him from the Chelsea fans. Like, is he ever going to succeed there because of his Tottenham links and because of the narrative forming around the Chelsea fans?
I think until he wins a trophy, they'll never really fully accept him. And then maybe if he wins something, then they'll fans will start to turn. But again, a bad start to next season, and I agree, the knives will be out. But they did, to be fair, there was a lot of pressure this season, when they were 12, 13 for points, and they withstood that. They stuck by him, and they reaped the rewards. Right, this is what they didn't do with Potter, which they could have done. They could have just kept with it. Maybe they could have ended the season in a similar way. They decided not to. They decided to sack him, in April and put Lampard in, and they had an absolutely disastrous end to the season. So I think they learned their lesson from that. They kept with him, and they ended the season really strongly. And for them, hopefully, it's something to build on next season.
But I've been saying this all season with Pochettino. You stick with him. You give him time and you'll reap the benefits. And I think they're starting to see that now for sure. But let's move on to Crystal Palace against Aston Villa. A battering at Selhurst Park. We both went for 3-1 to Palace, but Villa absolutely on the beach. You saw the scenes of them partying throughout the week, and I think it showed in this game. Crystal Palace were at their high-flying best. Mateta getting a hat-trick, Eze getting 2. Some of the football on display as well was absolutely brilliant from Crystal Palace. And Villa knew they'd secured Champions League football before this game, so they didn't really need to sharp and do anything. If you saw the Villa fans, they stayed in Selhurst Park for about half an hour after the game, still celebrating a 5-0 loss, but really they were just celebrating getting into the Champions League next year. But amazing signs for next season for Oliver Glasner and Crystal Palace. What a job he is doing.
Yeah, incredible, absolutely incredible. To actually broke into the top half, which is absolutely madness considering for a lot of the season, under Roy Hodgson, they were very much near the bottom, even like whispers of a relegation fight at some points, and it was so sluggish, it was so boring. There was a real apathy at Crystal Palace, and Glasner's really energized the team. And what an end to the season they've had. I think, 6 wins out of the past 7 games, something like that, or 5 wins of the past 6. They've and some of them played really exciting football. Eze or Lise, they're really getting the best out of them, and Mateta as well, of course. 16 Premier League goals now he's ended on, which is incredible. That's close to 20 goals, which, considering how he had been since he's joined the league, no one ever thought he'd be a striker who could get close to that tally. And Glasner's really brought the best out of him, and what a end to the season he's had. Obviously, Eze and Elise, what can be said about them? They're 2 absolute stars in the making. These are 2 borderline world-class talents. They would not look out of place in the top 6 at all. And is a lot of it is going to, how they can do next season is going to be based on whether they can keep both of them, because both those players are so central. They're a different team when they're both available, absolutely different team. Even when Hodgson was there, you saw what a difference it makes when they're both in the starting 11. It just makes the world of difference. And Glasner has really built this formation, which is getting the absolute best out of them. They're kind of inside forwards, and they keep picking up all pockets of space, which are really, really hard to deal with. And because they play that 5 at the back, they're also very, very hard to break down as well. So Glasner's really found an amazing formula at the moment for Crystal Palace, and unbelievable way to end the season. Villa, obviously, they can't, in a way, they got top 4, brilliant season for them, 68 points, but at the end of the day, they did kind of stumble their way into it at the end, because they're only 68 points. I think they did win 1 of their last 5 games, which I did predict them to, and they'll feel a bit unfortunate that Spurs just collapsed completely, because they only needed 1 win at that hard run, and they would have got it, and they didn't. Obviously, they didn't get that win. But Villa will be super excited going into next season about how they've done this season, semi-final of the Conference League and Champions League football to look forward to. But they got to make sure that they build on this season and, make sure they don't rest on their laurels and think their squad is good enough, because I really feel like they might be next season stumbling a bit like Newcastle did if they're not careful.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also they've got to worry about the FFP situation as well. They're on the wrong side of it. They need to, apparently they also need to sell maybe a big player before the season starts or before the end of June to get them in line with FFP. So that'll be a worry for them as well. So
they didn't win any of their last 4 games in the run-in for top 4.
They went to the Emirates and beat Arsenal. They only won 1 game after that.
Yeah. So on another day, in another season, we might be talking of a massive bottle job, but. Thankfully for them, there were bigger bottlers in town.
Yeah, exactly. We out-bottled them, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Liverpool against Wolves. Klopp's last game finished 2-0 to Liverpool. Sim went for 5-2. I went for 4-1. Wasn't the absolute battering as a scoreline as we all expected. But in terms of the way the game went, I mean, Liverpool should have scored more goals than they did. It did only finish 2-0. It was a complete dominant performance from Liverpool and the right way to send off, a right send-off for Klopp.
Yeah, and... really great performance from Liverpool. They should have scored a lot more goals. Again, probably the story there is definitely the last month of the season for Liverpool, where creating loads of chances but not making the most of them and not putting teams to the sword where they should be. They did score the 2 goals that they needed to win the game. Was Quanta getting on the score sheet again? I think his second goal in 2 games. So he's maybe looking like a player who could really have a really bright future at Liverpool. I've been quite impressed with him recently, Quanta. But a lot of question marks now for Liverpool. Obviously, they've got a really good young team. They've obviously 82 points this season in Klopp's last season is a really good tally, really good foundations going into next season. But it's going to be very interesting now with Arne Slot coming in. That was obviously confirmed by Klopp after the game and by Slot before the game as well in his press conference. And it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of direction they go in with some of the players and what kind of signings they make, what kind of changes Arne Slot has to the kind of system and things like that. It's going to be very, very interesting and interesting times at Liverpool. Because logically it's going to be a transitional season, but maybe Arne Slot could hit the ground running. You never know, because they've got quite a settled team there now.
It is kind of a similar style and a similar brand of football that Arne Slot plays to Jurgen Klopp, but it's not just about the football, it's about how he can implement it, how he can get through to the players, the relationship that he's going to have with the players as well. So time will tell, but I think Liverpool will still be strong next season. I do believe that. I think top 4 for sure. I think a title race, I don't know about a title race, but I think top 4 for sure.
Where do you think they need? Maybe a number 6, obviously, Endo. Endo's been good, but you can always upgrade there. I mean, I guess maybe you got to start looking at the future of the forward line. I mean, they've got a young forward line, but Salah's obviously aging. Robertson's wrong side of 30. Van Dijk's wrong side of 30. So maybe they just need to freshen things up a tiny bit. But
I think they need to look at their defence, man.
It's going to be very difficult to improve. I mean, I look at their defence.
Matip's gone.
Matip's gone, so they maybe need some defenders. But Konate, Van Dijk, Quansah, I mean, those are 3 pretty good options.
Yeah, you say that, but Van Dijk, you don't know if he's the long-term answer, how old he is, and he might be out the door soon, whether it be this summer or next summer. Konate, can you keep him fit for a whole season? I back him in quality, but can you keep him fit for a whole season? Quanta's an up-and-coming player that's come through this year. So you look at that team and the amount of goals that they concede. The defence definitely needs to be looked at, and they need at least another addition at centre back, in my opinion. And the front line as well. As much as they got good talent there, they're just so inconsistent in front of goal. You look at Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah. Salah's obviously the one that's been getting goals from year in, year out, but he's had a poor second half of the season. Is age showing there with him? And the other 3 with there just look too inconsistent in front of goal for me.
I think you talk about their defence. I mean, 41 goals conceded this season. That's only 7 more than City. Obviously, that's the 3rd best defence in the league. So, yeah, they need improvement, but it's not like it's going to take that much to catch up.
That's what I say. One more addition, I said.
Yeah, maybe a bit of defence. I think a number 6. And I think as well, it's time for Diaz to leave, in my opinion. As much as he's a good player, I think he's not doesn't do enough in the final third. So maybe a replacement for him. And there's also rumours about Núñez. Have you seen all this stuff about Núñez? He didn't clap Jurgen Klopp when he was getting his guard of honour. So I wonder if there's it's not all. Apparently he's deleted all his Liverpool images on Instagram. So I wonder if there's something going on with Darwin Núñez as well.
Yeah, there seems to be. He also didn't start for the last month and a half of the season. He favoured Cody Gakpo over him, where Darwin Núñez was pretty much favoured throughout the whole season. I think he's a good player, got really good attributes in terms of being a number 9 in the Premier League, but he's just way too inconsistent in front of goal, just misses too many easy chances.
But I do wonder whether they'll look at Núñez and think, because they spent 70 million on him, they're going to have to, if they're going to sell him, they'll probably have to take a hit on that. Yeah. Is it worth giving him another year, or is it worth looking to replace him? I don't know. I'll probably say give him another year.
I think Arne Slot will come in and he'll probably back himself to get the best out of him. So, yeah, maybe another year. Because of if it was Klopp staying on for another year, I'd probably say they'll probably get rid of him. But because a new manager's coming in, he'll probably give him the benefit of the doubt and think he'll get the best out of him. But anyway, let's move on. Luton against Fulham. It finished 4-2 to Fulham at Kenilworth Road. I went for 2-2. Sim went for 3-2. So he gains a point here. I didn't actually see much of this one. Did you see much of it?
No, I didn't. But obviously Luton gave it their best right at the end of the season to try and get a win for their fans. But the quality just wasn't quite there, as I predicted. I thought Fulham would just, be a bit professional, take advantage. Jimenez ended the season with a good brace for him. So good win. Fulham obviously ending the season in 13th, so well safe and decent for them. Luton, look, I think they can be proud of their season's efforts. Did their best to try and stay in the league, but at the end of the day, only 26 points, which is, I don't think has ever been good enough to stay up past 26. So they just, at the end of the day, didn't have the quality as much as they gave it a good go.
Yeah, also injuries massively hampered them towards the end when the real run-in started, where they needed to pick up the points. They just couldn't with the amount of injuries that they did pick up. In terms of two Luton players who I think can stay in the Premier League, I'm looking at Alfie Doughty, who scored on the day, and also Elijah Adebayo as well, who I think can... he's been linked with Everton today, and I think that would be a good move for Everton and a good move for him.
And I think Barkley will get another move.
Barkley,
I think as well. I really like him. And I think Lokonga will also. I don't know if he's on loan or not, but maybe he's going back to Arsenal. But he'll probably get another move in the Premier League, I reckon.
All right, second last game, Manchester City against West Ham, champions elect, won 3-1 at the Etihad. Sim went for 4-1, I went for 5-1. And you know what? 3-1 massively flattered West Ham in this. They could have scored 6 in the first half, or the first 20 minutes, really. Jeremy Doku was a menace down that left-hand side. Phil Foden, the goals he scored, especially the first one, was absolutely breathtaking. Rodri as well. Seems inevitable in these big games. Rodri always comes up trumps for them. And look, they made it hard work for themselves at times. That West Ham got a goal back, nearly got another goal back that was ruled out by VAR, but it was rightly ruled out, very much so, with the handball.
Playing volleyball.
Yeah, literally. But look, Man City were incredible on the day. And I think when you look at Arsenal and you look at Man City going into the final day, both teams desperately need a win. I think you could see who's been there and done it, and then who's the newcomers.
Yeah, I think it was the mentality, as Rodri said. I think the mentality of both these teams, obviously, is not completely shocking because Arsenal still haven't won a league in 20 years and they're still young and they're new to these kind of situations, even though they had a title race last year, they're still quite kind of new to these situations. This is the last time, I think, in a long time, they've taken the title race to the final day. So it's still, they're going to be seeing it as building blocks. But when it comes to these situations, Man City has just been there and done it so many times. It's second nature to them. When it comes to the final day, you know they're going to get the result. You know they're going to go get the win by hook or by crook. Remember 2 years ago, 2-0 down against Villa with 15 minutes to go, turned it around. I remember even before that, last ever season playing Liverpool, they played Brighton away. They went 1-0 down early. Another team on that occasion might have started to shit themselves a bit. But they ended up winning 4-1 very comfortably. Man City just know what it takes to be in this position. And I'm sure you saw it within a minute they were ahead. And that's the mentality.
What a goal.
Unbelievable how Phil Foden. It's a carbon copy of the goal he scored in the Manchester derby. Just cut inside from 25 yards on absolute top bins. Obviously crowning his Player of the Year award with a brace on the day. I thought Doku was so hard to handle. But, on another day, West Ham get back in the game in the same minute Arsenal equalised. And you're thinking, if our thing's starting to turn, it gave Arsenal a bit of hope. But in that second half, Rodri gets the third goal and he does it. And after that moment, never really in doubt they were going to go on and win the game quite kind of comfortably. And I think it was a pretty comfortable day in the end for all Man City fans. And that's just the mentality. And Roger was saying after the game what the difference was, and he actually pointed to that game at the Emirates. He said,
No, the Etihad.
Sorry, the Etihad, where he said, they came to our stadium and they didn't want to win; they only wanted to draw, and that's the difference in mentality between us and them on those fine margins. Arsenal didn't want to, commit any risk, and they only wanted to get the draw. They got the draw they wanted, but at the end of the day, they didn't get the league they wanted, and it comes down to that mentality between the two teams.
Yeah, and I remember sitting here when we were reviewing that game saying if Arsenal want to win the league, they need to go and win at the Etihad. And I think that's what it came down to at the end of the day. But you got to give credit to West Ham as well. Well, one player at West Ham, Mohamed Kudus, what a goal he scored with the overhead kick. And also some amazing dribbling was on show throughout the game as well from Mohamed Kudus, where Man City did find it hard to deal with him. But he seemed to be like a one-man show at times for West Ham yesterday. And the West Ham fans at the end of the game serenaded Declan Rice. I know he wasn't there, but they were saying, "Are you watching Declan Rice?" They were singing when Arsenal fucked it up and stuff like that at the end of the game. Why do West Ham fans not get mentioned and only Spurs fans get mentioned when they don't want Arsenal to win the league?
Because we're in their head. It is what it is.
And last but not least, Sheffield United against Tottenham. 3-0 to Spurs at Bramall Lane. Sim went for 2-1. I went for 3-1, so a point on the board for each of us there. And yeah, after a bit of an early scare from Tottenham, 10-15 minutes, I thought Sheffield United started the strongest. Spurs took control after getting that goal against a run of play, and there was only one team that was going to win it after that.
Yeah, and Kulusevski playing in a different position for Tottenham in this game. Obviously got a brace on the day and maybe showing some signs that could be a position for him in the future. Very accomplished display. Obviously they needed the point to get Europa League, and they got all three, and it was a very comfortable victory on the end. No surprises. Very solid win for Spurs.
All right. So at the end of all the scores, it finishes 449 to Sim, 434 to me. Shall we go take a look at Starman?
Did we do a Starman this week? I think we said no Starman this week.
Let's go and have a look. Sim went for Cody Gakpo, 0 goals, 0 assists in Klopp's last game for Liverpool. And I went for Jean-Claude Boss Mateta, 3 goals and 1 assist. What a Starman pick in the last 3 weeks of the season.
Didn't you pick Mateta early in the season?
4 goals for Haaland, 3 goals and assists, 4 goal contributions for Mateta in the last day. And I win, predict the Prem this year on the last day. History has repeated itself, but I think even better this time. There was 10 points, the gap. 451 to myself, 449 to Sim.
I think new rule for next season, we end it at game week 37.
You would love that, wouldn't you?
New rule.
Bottle Job Sim does it once again.
Last week, every time the last week absolutely screws me. Bloody Mateta.
And we were doing the watch along here during the last weekend of the Premier League, and we were watching all the goals go in. And I think we should go and have a look at how it all unfolded. Let's go and have a look.
So Van de Ven on the overlap, across in the box and away. There's been a goal at Selhurst Park, 1-0 to Crystal Palace.
Who is it, people?
It's Mateta.
It's Jean-Claude Mateta. 5 points is the gap now.
Jean-Claude?
That's a year back. It was last day drama that one week. What is his name?
Jean-Paul, isn't it?
No, Jean-Paul.
In the last minute, wasn't it? Bloody Mateta.
Jean-Philippe.
Mateta, and that levels it up. 2-0 to Crystal Palace.
Oh. Mateta again. Level pegging now, people. Jean-Claude Mateta.
4-0.
Is it Mateta? Is it Mateta? Give me the good news. Is it Mateta hat-trick? Come on! The scenes! We're in the last day of Predict the Prem.
Can't believe it.
And in the last 3 weeks, I've had 2 hat-tricks.
I can't believe it.
You were what? Over 20 points ahead of me at one point.
Yeah. Haaland and Mateta screwed me. Unbelievable.
Oh, I love it. You're so dejected on the last day of the season.
Happens every year.
Last year,
I'm not going to be turning up for final day. Of this
last
season
year
anymore.
you were depressed that Spurs scored in the last minute. And now Mateta complete. Jean-Claude Mateta.
Yeah, got a new name. Got a new name for him.
Yeah, unbelievable
Look, I
stuff.
can take solace. I won the scores, so maybe my football knowledge when it comes to predicting results.
Yeah, you can find any way you
I'll
can
take any
spin
wins
it.
I can
Any
get at
way
this
you
point,
can
I'm
spin it. But 2 losses on the bounce, 2 years losses on the bounce.
What was that? You got 7 goals in 2 weeks. Ridiculous.
Come on.
Ridiculous.
You got to know how to pick them. You got to know how to pick them. You knew Aston Villa were going to be on the beach.
Congratulations. I have to congratulate you.
Come
for the win.
on.
There you go. I'm a good sport.
Finally, a good sport coming through from you. But thank you, everyone, for watching us today. I take the trophy for another year. Here, where's my trophy?
You'll get it at the beginning of next season.
All right, cool. I still haven't got my trophy from last
Okay,
year.
where's my trophy? What I want?
But yeah, we'll see you all very soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time.